I'm Paul Vermillion. As a parent of adolescents ages 10 to 24, and as a youth pastor, I wanted to know the answer to the question, what are the influencers that can predict where, when, how, if adolescents will become sexually active? And the majority of the research to answer that question was done during the sexual revolution, during the second feminist wave of 1960 to 1990. First feminist wave, getting the right to vote, and then second feminist wave, this was rights over sexuality. In 1960, the first birth control pill was released here in the United States, Inovid, followed in 1961 by the German birth control pill Anovlar. They were marketed as tools for the calendar to be able to, with precision, plan births for a family. Now, there are two different areas that we can look at that will predict with a high rate of certainty whether an adolescent is sexually active right now and whether they will be sexually active in a 5-year period of time. The first is, what society are they in, and what is society teaching, and what are their mores, where is it moving towards, and how are the youth being influenced and with that from society? What media are they consuming, what books are they reading, TV, movies, videos, and so forth. The second is, who are the people that they're hanging out with? Who are their associates, their close influencers? Now, for influence, we found that for youth, it's the first 15 years when parents have the main influence to influence a youth's beliefs, which then will impact that youth's attitudes, which then will impact and that youth's behaviors. After age 15 and on up, then it becomes the peers as the major influence in that adolescent's life. To this extent, it becomes really a question of if. If there's an adolescent who's a virgin and all their friends are virgins, then an 80th percentile of the time, that youth will remain a virgin. However, if one best friend becomes a non-virgin, that increases the odds by 40% that adolescent will become a non-virgin as well. And if that youth has two best friends who are non-virgin, it increases by another 38%, which means that really, if you got two best friends of that adolescent who are non-virgins, that youth is going to be a non-virgin in no time short. We found a direct correlation between religiosity and sexual activity, and it is a matter of what the local expression of that religion is at its local level that the youth is adherent to. Is the guru, the pastor, the priest, are they permissive or are they non-permissive in their theology? That is where the influence is going to lead that youth. In other words, are they liberal or are they conservative? We found that to be true across the case for both Western religions, both Catholicism and Protestantism, in Eastern religions, in Buddhism, and in tribal religions around the globe. Now, what do the following people groups have in common? The Syrians in the Middle East, the Sami, reindeer herders in the Scandinavian countries, and the Tiwi, Australian Aboriginals. Well, it goes back to a question that really is old of whom. Whom is the ideal mate for a person? And this is an old idea that we see in the Bible with Abraham when he's looking for a wife for his son Isaac. He says, go to my relatives to choose a bride. Go to my relatives. It's the idea of cross-cousin marriages. That is the desirable whom by parents around the globe in many cultures. And when we in our Western framework hear that, in the United States we think, oh, wait, in the hills, the hillbillies, interbred. Well, no, it's not that. It's in most of our states in the U.S., we have legislation on the books that prohibits first-level cousins to marry, but it allows for outside of that. And so the ideal in these cultures has been for a long time that if mom and dad have a kid, if that child is a boy, then he should go to mom's side of the family to find a wife. So go to mom's sister, come down. That may or may not be allowable here, but go one further up and go to mom's grandma, and then over and down and find a bride. And likewise, if it's a girl, then go to dad's side of the family to find a husband. And go up to dad's brother, come down and find someone to marry, or go up one further to grandpa, on dad's side of the family, come down over somewhere and find someone to wed. Now what it did is it kept the families very close knit together. It kept the marital bonds truly family, in that everyone knew each other well, and there weren't a lot of unknowns when choosing a spouse, or in choosing whose family you were going to be marrying into. Now the next question is a question of how did they orchestrate all this? Well, in the Tiwi communities in Australia, it traditionally was ages 8 to 12 when they would marry them off, and these were contracts that were arranged by the parents. Legislation of today, bringing things current, says, hey, that's just not allowed. Age 16 or up, or 18 or up, in some cultures now, is what's necessary for there to be a high level of autonomy for both the young man and the young woman to make that choice for themselves. Well, in Sudan, it's still allowable to marry at age 10. This is, again, a global shift and change. But in Sudan and other Arab-influenced cultures throughout the Middle East, there is the idea of temporary marriages. There's permanent long-term marriages, but there's also temporary marriages, which are more like dating, but with legal rights to have sex. And what it does is it secures the responsibility for parentage, so that if two people who are having sex have a baby, it's very clear who the mom and the dad are, and the child is taken care of well and appropriately. In those cultures, it's usually a 4-month waiting period for the women in between temporary marriages, so that if she got pregnant, it's really clear, and it's clear who the mom and the dad are. Those are just civil contracts entered into and out of. And then in China, it's a completely different thing. The 40% of the marriages there are happening like this. That there's a boy and a girl dating. If the mom of the boy likes the girl, she'll bring him on home and get him in the boy's bedroom and lock the door and lock him in. Locks on the outside of the doors and say, you two have sex and you're not coming out until you have. And the whole family leaves. And it comes back after they've done the deed, and it's a sealed deal. So these big places, the big influencers of the how, the whom, the if, to determine whether adolescents are going to be sexually active, are number one, society. What society are they in? What's where is that society going, and what's it teaching? Number two, what religion, if they're in a religion, and what's the orientation of that local expression of the religion? Is it liberal or is it conservative? Then the parents, what are the views of the parents, and how have they brought up their children up to the age of 15? And after 15, what are their friends doing? That's how we're going to know. This is Paul Vermillion. Back to you, Doc. These are the references for this presentation by slide, for both the studies that were cited and the digital photographs that appeared herein. Again, this is Paul Vermillion. Now, back to you, Doc.